What a great first day of Land Euro. I don't think it's the best panels I have seen in 20 years. Just incredibly interesting, educational, and then the exhibit floor is unbelievable. So make sure you get over there. If you didn't catch it yesterday, get to all the locations. It's unbelievable. And I'm really delighted to introduce our keynote. Very fortunate to have a tremendous keynote speaker to start the second day, General Alexus Grynkewich, Commander, United States European Command, and Supreme Allied Commander, Europe. Previously, General Grynkewich served as the Director of Operations, J3 for the Joint Staff. He's a 1993 graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy, and he served as an instructor pilot, a weapons officer, and operational test pilot in the F-16 Fighting Falcon and the F-22 Raptor. General Grynkewich has commanded at the squadron, wing, and air expeditionary task force levels. His staff assignments include service at Air Combat Command, U.S. European Command, U.S. Central Command, Headquarters Air Force, and the Joint Staff. Prior to his current assignment, he served as the 9th Air Force Essential, Shaw Air Force Base, South Carolina, and the Combined Forces Air Component Commander for U.S. Central Command and Southwest Asia. So please join me in a warm welcome for General Grynkewich.
Thanks, General Brown, and thanks to AUSA for having me here today. General Brown gave it away, but I kind of figured the only reason I was invited here was CDs always confused me for an A-10 pilot. As much as I tell them, it was F-16s and F-22s. Anyway, it's an honor to be here today, and thanks for letting a fighter pilot come and speak to this esteemed group at a Land Forces conference. I'd also like to just take a moment to thank our German hosts, and let me reflect for a moment on some history. If you look at the long arc of NATO history over the past 75 plus years, there's a few decisive points in time that really mattered. One of those was at the end of the Cold War, when NATO was finding itself and figuring out how to bring stability to a continent. The growth of NATO during that time period. A second might have been after the attacks of September 11th on the United States, the only time that NATO has invoked Article 5, and countless NATO nations contributed to American defense. The other, though, if you go a little further back, about 70 years ago, was the German accession to NATO. That was an absolutely seminal point in time, so I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that and congratulate our German allies on their accession 70 years ago in great celebration over the last few weeks. I'd also like to welcome all the Chiefs of Defense and Land Force Commanders who are here alongside the rest of you. It's a great opportunity for me to engage with some of you, and really for all of us to engage with industry leaders. And I'll talk a little bit more about the importance of that latter group, the industry leaders that are here, a little bit later. Being stationed in Belgium, it's also a great opportunity to come and enjoy a little bit of that light German food that you can get in a restaurant. So last night, my team and I went out for a short dinner, and a couple of things struck me as I was sitting there. Sitting in the restaurant, and I look around, and there's different groups of people that are present. Over to my left, there was a group of 5 or 6 young 20-something young men celebrating a little too much, whatever they were celebrating, but having just a great time. Over to the right, in my field of vision, about the 2 o'clock position, there was a young family that was there with a couple of kids out just having a dinner on the town. And then off to the rear of where I was sitting, there were a couple of young people that were dating, probably on their first or second date from what I could tell, maybe thinking about if they were going to start a family in the future. And as I thought about that, sitting in Wiesbaden, a German town with a tremendous history, just a beautiful location, and those families enjoying their lives, those people enjoying their lives and able to go out and have a meal, able to enjoy the freedoms that we have. They probably don't even realize it, but they depend on something. And if my slide, where are my slides? There they are. Let me go back one. This is what they depend on. They depend on 32 nations that are united by a common cause, a common view of a peaceful world, a peaceful future, and a bright future that is underwritten alliance on, this alliance that has underwritten the freedoms that they enjoy on this continent for over 75 years. So for me today, it's an honor to be here as the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe. Only been in the job for a couple of weeks, but it's great to be part of something bigger, something that matters to those families that are out there every single day enjoying their freedoms. And as I've walked through the halls of the Supreme Headquarters of Allied Powers in Europe, or SHAPE up in Belgium, you can feel the energy that all these members of the Alliance have for the era that we're in. And if you talk about decisive periods in NATO history, now is one of those decisive periods, I would argue, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But this unity that you see reflected here is essential. It's absolutely essential. And that's because the alternative is something that we'd rather not contemplate. So this image is from Bucha in Ukraine, shortly after the invasion of February 2022. Bucha is just to the west of Kyiv. And fortunately, this is not Bucha today. But early on, it was threatened, and those are Russian tanks that are destroyed in the streets, demonstrating the threat that Ukraine faces and that the alliance faces even today. War persists on our doorstep in Ukraine. And while we seek a peaceful resolution, even if that resolution comes, the Russian capabilities that are there will reconstitute, and just by their very existence will be something that we'll have to think of from the military perspective and understand how it threatens the alliance and the freedoms that we hold dear. Russia will undoubtedly, in my mind, remain an enduring threat. But they're not the only threat. On the southern flank of NATO, we have a counterterrorism threat that continues to grow. In the Middle East, we have continued threats of war and spikes of violence that are ongoing constantly. And then in the Indo-Pacific, the People's Republic of China poses a systemic challenge to Euro-Atlantic security, and they're a decisive enabler of Russia's war in Ukraine. Russia is also supported by North Korean troops. Who would have thought that we would see North Koreans fighting in Kursk? It's unfathomable, and yet it's happened. Each of these threats that are out there cannot be viewed, in my estimation, as discrete challenges. We've got to think about how all of them are aligning and the risk of simultaneity of conflict across the globe. And that, if for no other reason, is why all of us have got to get better. We have got to build the capabilities and capacity, the mass that's needed on the modern battlefield to be successful in defending all that we hold dear. There's good news though, and that's that there have been some profound changes over the past several years. For NATO, for the first time since the 1960s, we have a strategy. The defense and deterrence of the Euro-Atlantic area. A recommitment, if you will, to collective security here on this continent and across our area of responsibility. So we have a strategy, and then we have plans underneath that strategy. And these plans are the foundation, not just for what the fight is going to look like for warfighting and exercising, but they're also a template for our modernization efforts. They can tell us exactly what capabilities we need to be successful in executing those plans. We've got them at the level across the entire region. We've got them for sub-regions on the continent that we intend to defend from our Joint Force Commands. And we have domain-specific plans for air, land, and maritime. All of those are being exercised at scale. And in the upper left, you see an image of some of that exercising at SHAPE headquarters, where we're turning ourselves into a strategic warfighting headquarters, a transformation started by General Cavoli and that we are going to continue to move forward. And below the SHAPE level, as we go to subordinate commands across the continent, We're looking at our command and control architectures. We're aligning our headquarters to new geographies brought on, especially by the cession of Sweden and Finland in the bottom right. And then we're looking at the force requirements that are required to make these plans successful, as demonstrated in the upper left. And allies are bringing capabilities in and offering them to the alliance and to allied command operations at unprecedented levels. We owe a ton of thanks to General Cavoli, my predecessor, and leaders from across the alliance for getting us to this point. It's really historic. There's still a lot to do, but we're on the right path. One of the places where we're on the right path is in exercising. I showed you the image of the headquarters exercises, but these exercises are also happening in the field where we're learning and getting better in our formations every single day. The images you see at the top are exercising at scale in Steadfast Defender in 2024. 90,000 troops from across, at the time, 31 allies plus Sweden, so all 32 members of today's alliance. Over 50 ships, over 80 aircraft, 1,100 combat vehicles. The last time we did an exercise of that scale was in 1988 during Reforger, the return of forces to Europe. So it's an unprecedented exercise in maneuver warfare and in command and control of that maneuver warfare. We're also learning. I know we had a couple of our Ukrainian friends here yesterday, and they provided some of the lessons that they've learned. And we're taking those observations from these ongoing conflicts, both in Ukraine and in the Middle East. And we're trying to figure out how do we leverage emerging technology to create strategic effects. In most cases, the technology's out there, it's established, it's available. We've just got to figure out how to use it. We've got to evolve our TTP. We've got to figure out how to get it into our fighting formations. The pace and cycle of innovation is increasing, and we've got to learn to keep up with it. All of this is going to require significant investment. But in a piece of good news, we've all committed to that investment across the alliance. A historic accomplishment, in my view, at the Hague Summit recently, at the end of June, to reach an agreement on spending 5% of GDP. This demonstrates will across the alliance and every single nation, backing the military requirements we have with a commitment to getting those requirements into the field. The challenge now isn't the commitment, the challenge is taking that commitment and turning it into real capability and capacity on the battlefield. I see myself as the conscience of the alliance in this way, and we'll be watching very closely from my headquarters to see how our allies and partners spending, how can we advise them on where their investments need to be, how do we make sure that it results in real capacity for us and formations that can be brought to bear that make our plans as least risky as possible and have the highest possibility of success. And as I mentioned a little while ago, and as General Donahue, I think, mentioned yesterday, we have a shopping list. The shopping list comes from our plans, and we can tell industry exactly what it is that we need. For all the leaders that are out there, it's our job, I think, to hold industry accountable to deliver quickly, and to hold ourselves accountable for giving industry the ability to deliver quickly through our acquisition processes. And we've got to do this fast. We need real capabilities, and we need them delivered as soon as possible. We can't afford to wait. Future pledges are no longer enough. We need things to start showing up in the armies and in the air forces and in the navies of the alliance as soon as they can. To do this, the defense industrial base on both sides of the Atlantic is going to have to become fully activated, in my view. There's plenty of work to go around. And it's a false choice to think that we can only invest in one or the other. It needs to be one seamless industrial base that can deliver capability and capacity for the alliance. There's plenty of work to go around. The leaders in this room are the ones who are going to make that happen. They're the ones who are going to hold industry and themselves to account to get the capabilities that we need, the new and emerging technologies, or the legacy technologies that are still relevant on the battlefield. So I challenge each of the chiefs of defense, land force commanders, and every leader in here to hold themselves to account for that. There's no time to waste. Especially in an era where we have global threats that are persisting, there's absolutely no time to waste. But having said that, I've never been more optimistic. We've got a plan for the first time in a long time, and we've got commitment to achieving that plan. The team that's represented in this room is going to be unstoppable as we bring that to life. So together, the leaders in the military of our nations, the leaders in industry can get this done, and we're going to have to deliver. Thank you. All right, I think I get to take a few questions now, so I look forward to that.
Thank you. Sir, vote ISO to your right. From Dave Zimmerman, all those 155 rounds in your photo have the markings of the Iowa munition plant, which Dave Zimmerman, the company I work for, proudly operate. My question is, sir, what has been your biggest surprise, either positive or negative, that you can share with us that's happened over the past several months?
Yeah, so I think it's a really good question. The biggest surprise was that I found myself in this job, perhaps. But second to that, as I watched I'll tell you what's really impressive to watch. It's really impressive to watch what happens on the modern battlefield with the pace of operations that's there. And so this may not be a lesson from the last 2 or 3 months, but a lesson from the past 2 or 3 years, if I can take that liberty. We've always known, all of us who studied warfare know that there's nothing like combat operations to drive innovation. When your life depends on it, you change what you're doing. What we hadn't seen until the recent conflict in Ukraine was how that manifests in the digital era and in the era of unmanned technologies and with additive manufacturing technologies and whatnot. And so what I have seen, one of the lessons that I've taken away is we've got to figure out what mechanisms we can build in all of our militaries that allow that same pace of innovation that the Ukrainians have done so successfully. We're down at the brigade level, they're able to have a relationship with an industry partner that drives innovation not in a matter of years, but in a matter of days. So I think that's something that surprised me. I didn't know that would happen. In retrospect, it's probably a little bit more obvious as you overlay the mega trends of where technology and warfare has gone. But I think it's something that we all need to study and reflect on and incorporate into our formations. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Emma Burrows from the Associated Press. President Trump said that some Patriot systems from Germany are already on their way to Ukraine. Would you be able to please tell us the status of these transfers and what other weapons, including offensive weapons, that Ukraine will be receiving and when it will be getting those weapons? Thank you.
Yeah, Emma, for reasons of operational security, I won't go into a ton of details on any of that. I'm not going to reveal to the Russians or anyone else the exact numbers of weapons that we're transferring or when those will happen. But what I will say is that preparations are underway. We're working very closely with the Germans on the Patriot transfer. And the guidance that I've been given has been to move out as quickly as possible. So we're doing that, and then we're also looking at other capabilities and what those needs are, and working on proposals for our political leadership. Thanks.
Thank you, and good morning, sir. Dusan Fischer, Slovakia. Thank you very much for your inspiring speech. My question is because you touched on industry a lot in your presentation, and I think that it didn't used to be with your predecessors. So how do you see your role as secure in fostering the relationship between the industry, the requirements that are coming from the capability targets, and the governments, that are putting the orders in place? So we've been discussing about industry a lot yesterday. So how do you see the role in this relationship? Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet. So for me as SAC here, ultimately I'm the consumer of the capabilities that nations of the Alliance provide for the execution of plans. And therefore I have a vested interest on behalf of all of us to make sure that those capabilities show up at the time and the place that we need them. And so in that sense, I do intend to hold folks to account, to highlight to everyone the need for industry to make investments on their own, for governments to invest in industry, and for the partnership to move forward so that these capabilities can come forward on the timeline that we need. If I go back to my comment about simultaneity, the simultaneity of conflict, right? This is the idea that a war in Europe could happen at the same time as a war in the Pacific. And those of you who listened to our great Secretary General Mark Rutte, I've heard him say that, you know, the thing Xi's probably going to do before he decides to go across this Taiwan Strait is give his friend Putin a call and ask him to help. That to me means that both of these things could happen together. We're going to need every bit of kit and equipment and munitions that we can in order to meet that. And we've all heard the year 2027. That's just 2 years away when we think that Xi could be ready to make his move and that phone call to Putin might come. So time is of the essence, and I intend to keep highlighting that and letting everyone know that we've got to move out and we've got to move quickly. Thanks.
Hi, sir. Stu Magnuson, National Defense Magazine. You said you'd like to have industry deliver capabilities as quickly as possible. Can you get a little more specific? Maybe give us your top 3?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, I think that the top thing that I would be looking for us to do is if you look at say a Ukrainian brigade and the types of capabilities that they can bring to bear, how do we get our brigades to have the same level of capability where we could match what they're able to do today? So from a land forces perspective, that's one key place that I think we've got to focus. A second area of focus for me would be on air defense. There's never enough air defense. You always want more, but that's an acute requirement, whether it's counter UAS or counter ballistic missiles. And then the third area that I'd focus on is long-range fires, whether they're delivered from surface to surface or delivered air to surface. We need the capability to hold things at risk that are in the deep in order to affect what's happening on the front lines. So those are the 3 main areas where I think we need to go. And when I talk about holding industry to account, you know, I think industry has some real incentives that are in place with a commitment to 5% of GDP, 3.5, 1.5. Investing in the things, I mean, this is a sustained commitment of spending from NATO leaders. So I would ask industry folks who are here and elsewhere to realize that that sustained commitment should be a powerful signal to do the things you need to do to expand production lines, to increase R&D spending, et cetera, so that we can get to where we need to go. Thanks for the question.
Sir, Dan Michaels with the Wall Street Journal. You've talked about and alluded to the digital transformation. You command a lot of troops so you can whip into shape for that. But how do you get the bureaucracy above you and in Washington to get in shape? You talked about contracting cycles and things like that. How do you control that?
Well, I'm very fortunate in my job as in my NATO hat and in my US hat. I've got 2 bureaucracies that I need to whip into shape. But frankly, they've been both very supportive. I think everyone on the US side understands the imperative to move quickly. The Deputy Secretary of Defense is definitely pushing the system to think of new ways to do acquisition and to move at speed and scale. So I think everyone gets it on the US side. Now it's just a question of working with Congress and working through all the different policies that are in place and retooling them for the age that we're in. The same thing in Brussels, quite frankly. You will find no one more energetic on this than our Secretary General. The entire North Atlantic Council recognizes the need to move quickly. I mean, they're the ones who approve our plans. They've approved the plans. They know that that's helping to drive where those capability targets are and how we need to meet them. Thanks.
Thank you, General. Sabine Siebold with Reuters. You will chair a meeting next week at SHAPE that aims to find more Patriot units for Ukraine. How confident are you that you actually can convince other countries to give away Patriot units to Ukraine, and how many Patriot units can Ukraine expect after that meeting?
Boy, you've got more detail on my calendar than I do right now. No, I've definitely talked about bringing some folks together to have this discussion. You know, as I mentioned in response to the previous question, air defense is important on the modern battlefield, and we've seen the scale of recent Russian attacks against Ukraine. So it is a key focus area and obviously a key focus area for the Secretary General and the President. So to meet that objective, I do intend to bring everyone together to look at what's in the art of the possible. This will be tied to being able to sequence what flows into Ukraine now, things that Secretary Rubio has talked about, capabilities that are in Europe can be moved more quickly than something coming off the production line, but the production line can then be used to backfill the capabilities that others donate. So I don't have a good sense of what the numbers will be, but I know that my guidance is to get the Ukrainians what they need to defend themselves. So there'll be a lot more to follow. We're going to move as quickly as we can on this. A ton of coordination in work, but as I mentioned, we're already in the preparation phase for the first tranche of capability to start moving with respect to Patriots. Yes, sir.
Oh, good morning, sir. Thank you for your service. I'm Ken Kraetzer, CaMMVetsMedia in New York area. I just was going to ask about space. We hear a lot from Army officials about how much use of space there is, satellites. I was just wondering if you could speak to how you work with the Allied nations on coordinated space operations. Thank you.
Yeah, really good question. So first, I'll endorse the discussions and what other leaders have told you. Space is an absolutely essential domain for modern warfare. It's what enables many of our kill chains, it enables our communications at scale and speed. And it's a domain that's contested now. And many of the members of the Alliance, all of the members of the Alliance are recognizing that in different levels of investment depending on the size of the nation into that. We have a few space components here on the continents and across the English Channel, and obviously over on the North American continent. Bringing all of those together is essential to kind of gather where the cooperative options are to secure our access to space that we're going to depend on. There's a lot more work to be done there, but it's really important work. And so in my Commander U.S. European Command hat, I have a Space Force Component Commander who's laser focused on doing that work and then starting to bring that to bear and working with our allies and partners to do so. Thanks.
Sir, thank you again for being here. Please give General Grynkewich a big round of applause.
All right, thanks everybody, and let me just close with one comment, and that's thanks to all of you, each of you in uniform for what you do, serving your nations, serving whether you're in the Alliance or outside of it. The security that you bring to free peoples is absolutely essential, and you wouldn't be here today, none of us would be here today without all of us being here and having that commitment. So thank you, and to the industry partners that are here, thanks for what you're doing to help us move forward with our capabilities and giving us what we need to be able to deter and, if necessary, fight and defeat our adversaries. Thanks a lot.